welcome to Steph on Skills, powered by Enginuity. So you have met people from all walks of life in the engineering sector, and I've got two of the, I want to say veterans, but it then makes you sound old, doesn't it, if I say veterans? Yeah, but veterans of the sector. So we've got Juergen Maier and Dame Judith Hackitt. So, I mean, I could do your CV, Judith, but we'd be here all days. But just give me a flavour of what you're up to at the minute, because you've led some big organisations in the sector, haven't you?
Well, I've just finished a stint as interim chair of the Office of Nuclear Regulation, which I did for about 15 months. And I'm back now into the world of building safety, following up on the government's commitments it made in its response to the public inquiry.
Yes, and of course concerns around safety, and also now we're talking about money going into the sector and
absolutely
making planning different for building, so that's going to keep you busy.
Oh yes.
Yeah. And Juergen, what about you? I mean, you've got a big job now as well. I mean, they've always been big. You've with Siemens, that type of thing. But what are you doing at the minute?
Yeah. So I was sort of really enjoying myself in the small tech business space after Siemens, and advising and a little bit of investing in tech businesses, and then but I was also advising the now government on industrial strategy and clean power, and then I got this call, which is, would you like to chair and help set up Great British Energy, which is going to be, when we set it up, it's going to be UK's publicly owned clean energy company, which I mean is uber exciting, so I couldn't say no.
Yeah. And how's it going? Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, look, it's fascinating because, as you say, I have led a large company, but I haven't set up a company, from literally scratch. And for this, and to have the vision that this in 10 years' time is going to be an energy company that's going to be developing floating offshore wind farms, producing power, selling it back to British consumers. I mean, it's super exciting.
It is, and also I definitely want to get into what the jobs and the kind of skills you're going to be looking for to do it, because there's some really exciting stuff going on. But first of all, let's go back a bit. Let's rewind, because Judith, tell me about how you got into the sector. So you studied chemical engineering at university, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. But never with the intention of going into industry. I thought I was going to end up being a teacher. But then when I did my stint in industry to learn all about how to apply what I'd learned, I enjoyed it so much I stayed.
Yeah. What made you pick that as a subject when you did?
Well, simply because I felt that to be a good science teacher and to inspire kids... you needed to be able to explain why the science was important. So my plan was to do engineering, spend a couple of years in industry, and then become a really good teacher.
Yeah.
But the
industry kept you. Which I'm very grateful for. But equally, there's probably a lot of kids who've missed out, and you've been an amazing teacher as well, aren't there? But I guess you do that in a way by a lot of the organisations you've worked with. There's been a big emphasis on how do we get more people into the industry? And we often talk about young people, but it's all generations we're talking about here, isn't it?
Yeah, and also I think you get at this stage in my career, and I think the same is true for Juergen, you get a lot of that from mentoring young people as well. Yeah. And the future leaders.
Yeah. I think it's interesting mentoring, because I've always looked for mentors in my jobs, because, but not in a formal sense. It can be informal too. People can be your mentor without it ever being like, yes, you are going to be my mentor, because sometimes people can panic and go, God, that's going to be a big commitment or whatever else. But it's it's bringing people into a room they might normally get in. It's that kind of championing people. And for example, with me, Robert Peston did that quite a bit when I worked behind the scenes on telly, when I was producing the news and through the credit crunch and everything. And he kept mentioning me in meetings, saying, oh, why don't you get Steph to do this? And there's lots of different ways you can help people through your career, aren't there?
Absolutely.
And we can forget that. So Juergen, tell me about you and how you got into everything you do.
My plan wasn't quite as sort of laid out as yours, Judith. It was all just sort of blindingly obvious to me. My father was an engineer, believe it or not, worked at Siemens.
Yeah. Oh, did he?
Yeah, indeed. And then my brother was a bit older than me, and he sort of went to, he was always science and engineering, and and I quite liked playing with Lego and Meccano, and my father had left home very early on, so me and my brother were the fixers around the house. So it just, there was was never for me any other option apart from I was going to go and study sciences, engineering, and be an engineer. I mean, it's as sad as that. But
also, that's a great story, because you can forget, can't you, how much of an influence what your parents did and just things you do at home can then have on your future career.
Well, and I think that brings us back to that mentoring and point that you were just talking about with Judith, isn't it? You know, I mean, my godfather was an engineer as well, and he was a big influence on me, and was always talking about what he was doing at work, and he was sort of leading a research and development department for automation equipment, and and this interested me even at the age of sort of 12 and 13, and like Judith, I do enjoy mentoring, and you're right, it's really very often it's just about helping encourage.
Yes.
It's about giving confidence. It's about people saying, oh, yeah, so you thought the same as I'm thinking now, and so I'm on the right path, So
absolutely.
It's just sort of reassurance a lot of the time.
And then hearing that from leaders in the industry is so empowering, isn't it? As soon as you said your godfather, I'm thinking of like Don Corleone or something. Like, Godfather, let me show you, son, how this works.
No, definitely not that sort of godfather.
So... this is about skills. This is about how we get more people into the sector, or how we think about, fulfilling the roles that are out there. Judith, what's your take on the skills landscape at the moment in the industry?
Everyone you talk to is concerned about it. Everybody wants to do something about it. And it's been that way for a very long time.
Yeah, it has.
We keep talking about the skills gap, so it just feels to me that we need to come together and be really clear about what we need, because we're almost in that space of being so busy, we're tripping over one another.
Yeah,
so
busy
many
doing
people
your own
trying
things.
to do the right things, and the number of times I hear people say, I'm retired now. I'm going to go back into schools and encourage kids to, and you go, no, it's not a good idea, because
it's a lovely thought.
It's a lovely thought with all the right motivations, but often from people who are
not relatable.
In my case, exiting the oil industry, right? Because they were chemical engineers, they spent their whole life working in the oil and gas industry. Yeah. That's not where we want the next generation to go. So we've got to give them up-to-date information and inspire them with what's coming, not with what was. Yeah.
So what is coming? Tell us a bit about all these exciting things you're doing in energy.
Well, I think the important thing, first of all, is to say is what is already here, and then I'll come to the what's coming. And
you can tell you're a boss. You're like, you change how this question how you want to answer it.
But honestly, I think... look, Judith is right. We've been having this conversation about skills for a very, very long time. But actually, if you look at what we're doing, it's amazing what we achieve. But we almost muddle our way there. So the question I keep asking myself, if we got all of this more strategic, my goodness, how even more amazing could we be? Yeah. And if I just say where we are, the clean energy sector, which is now the one that I'm working in and helping create this new energy company, it's got 275,000 people employed in it. I mean, and those people weren't working in that sector 20 years ago, even 15 years ago it was a fraction of that. So somehow we have managed to train 275,000 people into this sector. By the way, if you take the whole green economy, it's nearly 1 million people we've got employed in it. And by the way, we're now accelerating clean power. So the opportunities that we're going to create, and there's various reports, the Climate Change Committee says that over the next 5-6 years, we're going to create another 700,000 jobs in this area. Yeah. Now, many people are now saying, my goodness, where all those people are going to come from and what are we going to do? And so, the opportunity, it's not an imagination. It is here, right now, today. And I'm just wondering, at what point are we all going to get a proper industrial strategy? Are we going to properly align this? Are we going to make sure that the people who are going to be, losing their jobs in, for example, the oil and gas sector, how we can, make it crystal clear that those people don't need to worry. Anybody who wants, here's the way we're going to help you transition into these new exciting areas, you know, and that's the bit that we're still lacking.
Yes, because interestingly, you know, like I come from Teesside, and obviously Teesside heavy industry area, and it has gone through various transitions, and you know, now doing quite a bit around renewables, and you know, the lads who I went to school with, who went into oil and now moving into renewables.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of them are being left behind, and you're right, it's like, how do we make sure no one's left behind so we don't have that revolution and, you know, leave people left out and feeling like they've got no place and that they haven't got the skills, because most skills are transferable, aren't they?
And this is it, you see, you hear all of this negativity in the media, you know, we can't afford clean power's killing us and all of this, you know. You say, hang on a minute, you know, I mean, this is the opportunity of our lifetime, and you know, and absolutely we've got the opportunity to create jobs, you know, for literally anybody who wants to transfer their skills from an engineering sector. But I would add on, you know, and I remember when we were investing, when I was still at Siemens, in our blade factory in Hull, you know, we were taking people from petrol stations, from supermarkets, you know, and we were training them up, and they, you know, of course we did formal apprenticeship schemes, you know, and 1,200 people working in that factory now, all earning good wages, you know, great jobs, great future, and we just need to create so much more of that.
Yeah, so how do we do it then? Because
I think this is a hugely important issue, and to me it's bigger than skills, much bigger than skills, because we talk a lot, and we have the statistics roll off the tongue, you know, about 80% of the workforce that we'll have 10, 15 years from now we've already got. Yeah. But they're going to be doing very different things. So we know we've got to upskill them. Yeah. And give them transferable skills. And yet getting a system in place that delivers skills in an agile way, a modular way, for goodness sake, rather than them always having to go back to step one and get all the way up the ladder again. It's just so inefficient. But what else I think matters in this space, Steph, is this is about mental health. It's about productivity. It's not just about skills for industry to benefit industry. Yeah. It's of national importance, because people who are in work and made to feel valuable and feel a sense of people care about me and want to invest in me, it brings lots of other benefits. It's not just
it's a public
about
health,
the economic
it's
bit.
welfare, it's everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because if you leave, I mean, I'm seeing it kind of play out now with my friends who are in sectors where, you know, AI is starting to take over some of their jobs, or just people who have done a long time in an industry and want to change. I've got a friend who's a teacher who'd love to go into something else, but you're right. If you want to do that, you've got to go back in terms of salary and everything else and start from the bottom. And she's getting, you know, rejected from some jobs because they think, well, you haven't got the right experience. It's like, you've taught for years. You've done all kinds of things that I couldn't do. And so how do we, it feels like, who picks that up? Because it feels to me like it should be some type of lifelong learning, or some type of mentoring for life, not a person, I think but just
I think there's lots of things we've got to do, and one of the outputs has to be some kind of skills passport that we give to individuals,
but not like the national achievement you got at school, which was this awful little burgundy folder that meant nothing.
But also I think industry needs to get its act together. If you look at the way different sectors talk about jobs and the way they specify the skills they need, they make it very specific. Yeah. And use their own language.
Yes.
And that creates artificial barriers.
And when,
as we did in Enginuity when I was there, you know, Anne and I looked at some of those things with the team and looked at just how much commonality there was. And it's like 80% of it, as you said, is all the same. And the bit that you need to add on to transfer from one sector to another is marginal. Yeah. And then it becomes much more achievable when you realise that.
And also just showing people that, because I think there's an intimidation as well. People think, oh God, you know, mentally I'll have to start again. But actually what people need to be told is, you will bring a new perspective that will benefit that team. you're not going to be the weakest there. You might not know everything this industry needs in terms of like the practicalities, but that's a small part of it. You could bring stuff that other sectors are desperately in need of, that foresight of whatever it is, and teaching or government or whatever. And
your point about bringing a new perspective, I think, is a really important thing, because I've been working for so long on this whole issue of how do you bring diversity into manufacturing, and how do we recruit more people who think differently.
Yeah.
Whether that's neurodiversity, gender, race, whatever it is, we need more people from different backgrounds and different perspectives. And I think if we talked more about how valuable it is that we have different thought processes and different ideas, rather than launching campaigns to get more girls into industry, it's coming at it from that different, and in my view, more positive perspective.
I like this.
I'm so glad that Judith has brought up that point of diversity, because we are hearing a bit of a sort of an anti-movement to diversity, equity and inclusion, and it's fascinating me that there are some private sector companies that that are following this, quite frankly, nonsense. I've sort of fought all my career to bring diversity and inclusion into the workplace. I myself, as a gay man in engineering, sort of feeling like, quite frankly, I was a bit excluded from the workplace until about halfway through my career. And I haven't yet met anybody who doesn't believe that a more diverse group of people will create better outcomes and better innovation, because of exactly what you're saying, Steph. They've just got different. They don't all need to be experts at renewable, floating wind farm technology, but they'll bring their own point of view and their own experience.
I know, and it's not. It annoys me when people think it's tokenism, and it's not. It makes genuine business sense for your team to reflect everyone is using whatever it is you make.
Absolutely. That's what engineering is all about. We're here to provide solutions for society, and if we don't reflect the society that we serve, we're going to get it wrong, aren't we?
I want to talk about the skills passport, because I love this idea, because while you were talking I was thinking about it in my head. So it could be you could have a digital skills passport. It's something where it can feed into, if you put in what your job is, then it can help say, well, these are the skills you've got that would help in all these other industries, and here are some of the vacancies of these industries. And you can just, through life, update it. When you do something, you can just pop in a bit more information. Oh, I've project managed something at work, or I've done these different... Is that your phone going off? Is it going to be someone important? That's what we need to know.
But I forgot to turn this one off. I'm sorry. I turned my other one off, but I forget I've got two phones now.
Oh, have you got a burner phone?
Sorry, carry on.
But given the technology we have now, and the way we all are so used to dealing with apps, and we give so much data away, everyone's got medical things, devices now, and everything else, we all monitor everything. You could do that for your career, couldn't you? There could be there must be a platform. Someone can invent a platform that just does this all for you, and then it gets rolled out.
You've been talking to Anne, haven't you? We had that
Have you? No,
to do that within Enginuity, and create that whole platform for people to see where they could go, and see how small the gap was that they needed to fill to go somewhere else, and so on. And I just think it's such a great idea.
And then
such a great idea.
And there are countries that are doing this that we can learn from.
Go on, who?
In Singapore, for example, Singapore do have a model where everybody gets like a tax credit basically, and that gives you a bank account of what you can spend on upskilling. And by the way, you don't have to upskill in the career you're currently doing. You can choose to start upskilling somewhere completely different. And these credits you go on a portal, or you can go to a physical college, or it can be. And people are encouraged to constantly sort of spend these credits on their own education.
And you earn credits from being in work then, right?
Exactly.
Oh, God, that's so cool.
Yeah. So there are models around the world where we can adopt this. I'm just reflecting on the discussion we're having. And you know, one of the things that on the one hand we do very well, I think, in the UK is we're quite agile and we sort of reinvent things and whatever. But on the other hand, something as fundamental as the skill system, we just tinker with it far too much.
Yes.
And I think there are certain things where actually you just need to take a step back and just slow down a bit and just think and say, right, let's design something that works for the new world we're in. Exactly as you're discussing. You know, the new world is different. It's not, you know, like me. I did a career 33 years in one company, unheard of, and in the future it's going to be, you know, completely unheard of.
Absolutely.
You know, there's going to be, you know, and so what's this new world look like? And let's redesign the way you can do apprenticeships, the way you can upskill, the skills passporting, you know, and I think we just do need to take a bit of a step back and redesign all of this.
Yeah, because I was chatting to my mates the other night about night classes. And do you remember when you could do those? And, you know, one of my friends met each other at night classes and, you know, a couple who got together from a night class.
My mum taught German at night classes.
You know, it just feels like, and like you said, it could be virtual now. It doesn't need to be that you physically go somewhere, although, you know, that would also be nice to have places where, because at various stages in your life as well, you know, you reassess, you think about what you want to do next, even who your friends are. You might want to branch out, and normally people go to book clubs to do that, and it just feels like we're missing a trick there, doesn't it? I wanted to ask you as well, while I've got you, Juergen. So I was interviewing Reid Hoffman the other day, you know, the guy who founded LinkedIn, and he's one of these tech billionaires, and he's, you know, he was part of what's called the PayPal mafia with Elon Musk and, dare I say his name, Elon Musk and, you know, Sam Altman and all these guys who were doing the big, massive taking over the world stuff. And he was telling me about geoengineering and about how, and this fascinating this, have you heard, like, so where basically...
Make it rain.
Yeah. So where they're kind of doing this crazy tech stuff to try and change the climate, you know, so it's kind of engineering soil or what we put out into the atmosphere. And so like the world is...
Gosh.
Yeah. So he's a climate change optimist because he's like, we'll solve it through tech. We will invent things that will allow us to change where the rain goes. He was talking about releasing sulfur into... you know, the clouds, which helps to reduce temperature and all of that. It's like, I mean, I'm not expecting you to give an opinion on whether you think that's a good idea or not.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I haven't researched the particular area. I mean, it does sound slightly worrying to me, you know, and I do think we have a fundamental issue to resolve, which is, you know, our planet is warming up and we're seeing climate change, which is why I'm so committed about creating more clean power, you know, in the UK, but globally. Look, and there is another angle, isn't there? You know, I mean, this is scary stuff, isn't it? You know, starting to spray sulphur up, or, you know, affecting rain clouds, you know, and I don't want to say anything out of turn, but, you know, would you want, you know, 1 or 2 billionaires in the world sort of controlling that sort of thing?
I'm not trying to take this down that road, but they are the ones who are building AI data centers in the space of a couple of months, and it takes us years to put one up. It's like we kind of could do with, but anyway, that I'm not taking it down.
What do you think? I mean, Judith, you've been a regulator as part of your life. It sounds like a heavy regulator job.
I've been involved at the margins of some of these debates about geoengineering before, and I have to say it scares me, and it feels like we're kind of missing the point here, that we've messed up the climate. Yes, it
was man-made.
On this
planet. The problems
it's
we've given
us who've created the problem.
Yeah.
Let's stop meddling with the atmosphere now as our next toy to play with, and let's actually behave responsibly.
Yeah,
exactly.
And do the right things.
Yeah.
And for me, that's what it all comes back to, is that for so long, and certainly when I started out in the world of engineering, we talked about ourselves as, you know, creators of things and big Meccano. You know, you were talking about Meccano when you were a kid, and that's how people used to talk about engineering. I think now we talk about ourselves in a different way.
Yeah.
And we talk about ourselves providing societal solutions, and that means behaving responsibly and ethically. Not just safety, but, you know, really thinking about the ethical principles behind what we're doing and what's right and what's wrong. And there's a long way to go on geoengineering before I would be convinced that we were doing what was right in that ethical and socially responsible space.
I guess, putting aside the morals, ethics, whatever else, I guess it's more, my point is more coming back to skills, is just, there's so much going on in the world. Yeah. There's so many people being engineers who might not, we look at, I know Elon Musk is not the most person we want to be, but, let's say Sam Altman, I'll use him. So we look at, your tech billionaires like Sam Altman, who are doing OpenAI and things like that, who are changing the way industries function. Yeah. And they are engineers. Everyone talks about them as these tech billionaires, but they're engineers, and that's where the exciting, cool jobs are coming from, is engineering. And I think we can lose sight of that sometimes when we're talking about the sector. It's like these are the people who are genuinely making money and making a difference to the world.
But I think it's always been like that. Every technological breakthrough you think about brings immense opportunities, but there's always a downside, and there are always horrible things that can be done with that same technology as well as the good things. So I just think we want more people, and this is part of the skills agenda actually. You want people coming into this industry and this sector who are keen to use these exciting technologies to do good. Yeah. And to do things that will help us be more sustainable, help mankind, feed the planet, keep us all mobile in a way that's environmentally sustainable and so on. But it needs to be about using this exciting technology for the right reasons and for everyone's benefit. So what do you, I guess, looking at this optimistically, from your point of view, Juergen, what is life going to look like for engineers and scientists and, in 10 years' time, 15 years' time? You pick the time frame.
Well, it's just uber exciting, and look, I think both Judith and I have put a bit of caution over sort of climate engineering, but but what's great about these things is the curiosity it creates, and I think that's what we as an industry need to do more of. It's to make people curious about what are the answers to climate change, what are the answers to greater productivity through artificial intelligence, and then you can think your way into those and go, wow, that is that's really interesting. And then after that, of course, you start now creating the careers and the skills that you need for those careers. But am I optimistic about us being able to create literally hundreds of thousands of exciting technology, engineering skilled jobs in this country over next year, the year after, the year after? I'm absolutely optimistic about it. We just need to organise our system a little bit better. We need a bit more strategy, and then we just need to get on with the job and just deliver some more of these industries.
And we have been promised by the government that there will be an industrial strategy and it will do that. I mean, we're waiting to see, and obviously there'll be a lot of analysis after it comes out, but are you optimistic, Judith?
Yes, but like Juergen, I've been here before. We've heard it before. We've had an industrial strategy before.
We've had about 15 of them, haven't we, at one point?
Yes.
I feel like one thing we
need. Two things I think we need. One is long-term commitment. Yeah. Because an industrial strategy that only lasts for the lifetime of this parliament is
it's not good enough.
Not good enough,
and it's pointless as well.
And the second thing is that we've got to, I think, see this as a unifying thing rather than something that divides us back into our own little furrows and sectors.
Totally.
So the last industrial strategy went down that route of individual sector strategies, which ended up with us all out there competing for the same people, describing ourselves differently and creating confusion rather than unison. So for me, it has to be about a uniting strategy.
A shared target, basically.
That encourages people to come and be part of this much bigger movement of sustainability and creating wealth and everything else, not about everyone competing for their own little pot of money for their individual sector.
Yeah, and I think there's some good news there, which sort of is going to sound a little bit weird, but that is that the truth is there isn't enough money around anymore to sort of give these, we call them sector deals, and then you get money for automotive, for chemical, for pharmaceutical, etc., and there just isn't money to do that. So we are, I think, going to have to think about the sort of the more horizontal things. So what can we do to stimulate productivity through faster technology uptake within sectors? What can we do across sectors to ensure that we can get lower energy costs, especially for the energy intensive industry? These are sort of cross-cutting themes. And then exactly as Judith says, and then we just want some consistency around this. Yes, there are going to be a few sectors where we're going to be trailblazing, and we want to really shout those out. I do think clean power, is one of those, looking at the next technologies, floating offshore wind, hydrogen. You mentioned Teesside earlier, great opportunity in carbon capture. And these are all going to create jobs. And then we just want some longevity. And I think this government has got that, I'm feeling pretty optimistic.
Because it's more stable than it has been for a while.
Certainly.
And if you look at the rest of Europe, where it feels like there's a real lack of stability, maybe now is the time we can kind of capitalise on that from an investment perspective and everything.
I think it is. As a matter of fact, I came from an industry round table just this morning, and there was people around the table who were working internationally across Europe and in America, and they were saying that the plans that we are laying out for clean power in the UK, and that a lot of job creation within that, as I've said, that we've got one of the best plans in the whole world. I mean, when have you ever heard that about our sort of
number one at something?
And look, that's just the plan. We need to deliver on the plan now. But we've not often had these quite strategic plans, and I think we are getting better at it.
Yeah, good. Right. Well, I should end things on that optimistic note, I think. Unless there's anything else you want to add, you two, before you go. Anything else you want to say? No?
I just think the message to young people has to be very simple. If you want to make a difference to the world, come and really, really think about joining the engineering and manufacturing community, because that's what we're all about. Yeah, I think.
And we're doing a pretty good job at it, actually. But we need a few more of you to come on board to do an even faster and an even better job. Yeah, I totally agree with you, Judith.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, guys. Thank you very much to Judith and Juergen, and thank you everyone who is listening, watching, whatever you're doing, to be part of this. Thank you. You can get in touch with us if you email us sospod@enginuity.org. You might have some questions you want to ask us, or just some thoughts on the things we've been talking about. You can contact us through our social pages as well, and also please do make sure you press follow. If you listen to this podcast via whichever way you listen to it, you can press follow, and that will make sure you never miss an episode. But that's it from us. Bye bye.